fellow chess players, it's GM Max here, and for today's training video, we'll be seeing a crazy queen trap where, in a seemingly normal Italian game position, quiet play, suddenly the white queen gets trapped in the middle of the board. It's a game that we absolutely must see between Jeffery Xiong and Vladimir Fedoseev in the title Tuesday 2021, which I think Fedoseev actually won this event if I remember correctly. Well, let's get into it. The game went e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and Xiong played the modern Italian lines where you meet knight f6 or bishop c5 with pawn to d3 and just build a very solid structure as opposed to the sharper lines with knight to g5. Fedoseev put the bishop onto e7. After castles and castles, white played the move of rook to e1, and then after the move d6, then white played the move of a4. And the point of this sort of very prophylactic play by white is that if black were to attack that bishop with knight to a5, if black can trade the knight for a bishop, that generally is a very good outcome for him. But now after bishop a2, the knight would be a little bit out of play and could get kicked away later on in the game. Fedoseev instead decided to play the move of a5, fixing the a pawn into place and going for more of a dark squared strategy. Xiong played the move h3, and here Fedoseev again played at the opening very creatively, where a normal approach would be something like bishop e6 and offering to trade the bishops. Instead though he went king to h8, which at first glance might seem almost like a beginner's move, but the idea is that after knight to c3 and knight to g8, the black is ready to go f5 and to start attacking in the center with the pawn, very much in the style of Philidor from this 18th century. Actually, in this position, I think that white probably could have very seriously considered a move like d4, because these pieces will look a little bit passive if the center suddenly opens up like this. I think this would have perhaps given white some good chances for an advantage here. You know, if knight takes, queen takes, and the queen would get more active in that case after the exchange. Instead, white played the move knight to d5, and now black was able to get in f5 to hit the center. White played the move of c3, and black decided that it was time to close the center with the move of f4, rather than, say, f takes e4. And I think that f4 objectively is a mistake, but it ended up working really well in the game in the end, where white actually could have considered a move like b4 here, because even though it might look like you're weakening the center a little bit, it turns out without the move bishop g4, it's very hard to get your knight into d4. And meanwhile, white can sort of kick the black knight away and then hit in the center with d4. Like, the thematic way to deal with a flank attack in general, like g5 for instance, is to hit back in the center. So playing for the d4 would be very thematic in response. You know, moves like bishop b2 and kind of like we saw before. So white instead played a move d4, so still hitting back in the center. Black played bishop to f6 to keep his center solid. And here is where I think white started to drift a little bit and struggled to come up with a good plan. I think that probably the best plan is once again to go b4 and to really start getting the queen side opened as soon as possible, since this is a side where white is stronger, whereas black is playing for the king side attack. Instead, white played bishop b5, and the thing is I don't think that really does all that much, because let's say if black were to continue his plan with g5 here and just go for the pawn storm regardless, white's not really threatening to take that knight anyway, because then after b takes we see that the knight is kind of stuck, and after knight takes and queen takes, black has simply got in position to go g4 and get a very strong attack down the g file against the white king. Again, very much in the spirit of a King's Indian defense. Instead, Fedoseev put the knight back on b8 in this position, threatening c6 fork to win the piece. White brought the bishop back with bishop f1. We had knight d7. And now white played b4, where Xiong wants to open up the queen side where he has more space. Black tried to defend with b6. And now I'm a bit surprised by white's next move, where I think that actually bishop b5 back again would it be a nice way to exploit some of the gaps in black's structure as a result of putting nearly all the pawns on the dark squares. But instead, white played b5, and that kind of closes the queen side, which I think is the opposite of what white wants to do, because that would give black more of a free hand on the king side. After bishop b7, bishop c4, knight e7. So the position is still very good for white, and actually this position makes an interesting positional exercise for the more advanced players, where you might like to think about, well, how would I deal with this piece tension between the knights? Because often it's being able to evaluate the piece tension and handle it correctly that will allow you to win games against players of a similar level to yourself, especially at a higher level. So, in this position, I think that the move knight takes f6 was actually a really good move. I think the reason the white didn't play it is he was nervous that after gf6 that there would be some attack down the open g file. But actually the bishop is very well placed to stop rook g8, and the bishop is just an absolute pest on e6. And white can sort of just keep up the pressure, a move like c4 and get the bishop in. And it's a kind of weird sort of position, but one where I think white is actually doing pretty well if he handles it correctly, where he can even consider opening up the king side later after some preparation. Instead, though, white played queen b3, and that sort of allowed black to relieve the pressure that white had got out of the opening by exchanging some pieces. So he played knight takes d5, bishop takes, and actually e takes would have been an interesting move here to try and open up the e file for the rook. But white played the move queen takes d5 in the game. After queen e7, we see that now after bishop a3 that both sides' rooks are connected, so both sides have fully entered the middle game. And now black played g5, and we already see that because of this pawn h3 move, it acts as a hook where the move g4 is going to basically force open lines on the king side because of two pieces being under attack at once. White tried to defend that with the move of queen to c4, but after rook c8, we see that after queen e2, the black just has a very dominant attacking position, and after rook g8, well, already g4 is becoming an idea to open the g file. So white side stopped that with knight h2, going for a blockade on the light squares. Fedoseev in turn played queen to f7, preparing h5 and then a subsequent g4. And that's a pretty annoying idea, actually, where we can see that white is very short of counterplay, and actually the best chance here might be to play something like rook a d1 and then just turtle up the board with a move like g4. It doesn't guarantee that white will save the game, but at least if you can tie up the board and not give black a way to break through, it might maximize your chances of survival. Instead, though, white played the move queen to g4, and then after h5, this is where we get the beautiful queen trap, where white played queen f5, wanting to be annoying with the queen and not let black get in his g4. The problem we see here, though, is that the white queen doesn't actually have a safe move, and this is your chance to see if you can find the way that Fedoseev played it as black. What is the move or moves that he played in order to win the white queen from this position? As always, if you need more time, you can pause the video and then decide on your move and resume from there. Okay, so well done if you found this move of rook c to f8. It turns out there are actually a lot of winning moves because the queen is kind of trapped to the point where it can't really escape in pretty much any sort of way. Well, I guess a move like h4 is one attempt to try to make an escape for the queen. But even then, if you play like g4, for example, still the queen doesn't really have a good square to go to, and black just has a dominant amount of space on the king side. So in the game, white played rook a d1, and then after queen e8, the trap snaps shut. This is the retreat that's not so easy to see because you want to be able to retreat the bishop so that the queen is running out of squares and make sure that we're covering all the key squares with our pieces. After the move d5, black played the move bishop to e7, and white resigned here because after the move queen to e6, well, you might see how we trap the queen now. The black can play rook f6 or rook g6, and the white queen is lost, and a queen and rook for rook advantage is a very easy win at this grandmaster level. So yeah, that was a fun queen trap. Glad that you enjoyed the beauty of this game, and you also learned some valuable practical lessons, such as that you don't necessarily have to have a good opening in order to win. Sometimes you even can win from a bad position if you outplay the opponent later. So a very fun little game for us for the Italian. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas in the comments, to hear your voice as well. And also make sure to like the video to show your appreciation, and certainly consider subscribing to stay up to date with more of my Grandmaster training chess videos as they're released. And also, you can check the link in the description below to access my free How to Win a Chess course. So, see you in the next training video, dear chess lovers.